Don't you just wish we could play fantasy football like we play Madden and turn the injuries off for once in a while, just to have our full strength teams going? Unfortunately, we can't, and that's why I'm here. This week, I'm back with another 4 must-start players for your flex spots, and if you're hurting, some other places as well. Let's start off with Elijah Moore, wide receiver 38 on Football Guys weekly rankings. He's playing around 74% of the snaps and has earned a 25% target share in the first 3 games of the season. That's great numbers for him as Deshaun Watson's rounding into form. He's got 25 targets on the season, and 5 of them have come inside the red zone. That's the most among the Cleveland wide receivers, by the way. He's being moved around all over the formation. He's got 40 snaps out wide, 56 in the slot, and 6 rushes on the season. That's going to come into play a little bit later. He hasn't scored a touchdown this year, but against the Ravens defense, who have given up the 9th most points to wide receivers on the season, I think that can change. And Cleveland's offense is averaging around 68 plays per game, which is among the lead leaguers in the NFL. Let's go ahead and jump in to the tape and see what we got for Elijah Moore this week. You're going to see him down in this bunch formation for the Cleveland Browns, and it's just a quick little whip route, pivot route, however you want to call it, but Deshaun Watson's in trouble. He's coming down to get help and then be an outlet. That's one of the big things. On third down, can you be an outlet for your quarterback? So this is what he's run, just a little bit of a pivot route, get depth, and then come to the outside. As soon as he sees Deshaun Watson get in trouble up here, that's when we start to see the problems of an offense that can end up being on the wide receivers become available. Right here, he finds that space underneath. He gets into that space, and as soon as he sees Deshaun Watson get out of the pocket, he's fine. He's all right. He works up into space. You have a defender coming downhill here to get after Deshaun Watson, but it's third down. Ball has to come out. And right there, Elijah Moore is a safety valve, getting those PPR points for your fantasy teams each and every week. Again, he's got 25 targets this year. Those are really good numbers for Elijah Moore, but they use him in a lot of different ways. He's in a stack formation to the left side of the offense here. They're going to run him on a jet sweep, and they're going to hand the ball off initially. This is a little bit of trickery to get him on a wide receiver screen. So a pitch back to Donovan Peoples-Jones, who pitches it to Deshaun Watson, and then you have Elijah Moore, which should be a huge play. It should be an absolute huge play. You've got 2 Tennessee defenders here. One of them ends up blowing up the play, but Elijah Moore on a screen pass here on the right side for a first down, a nice chunk play here for him. And I'm a big fan of what the Cleveland Browns are doing with Elijah Moore, not just as a wide receiver on the jet sweeps here, but getting him the ball in unique situations. I like what they are continuing to do. Like I said, he has 6 rushes on the season, but this right here is a really nice way to just get the ball on second down and get yourself a first down, keep the offense ahead of the chains. And then, like I said, he has 6 rushes on the season right here. He's lined up in the backfield next to Deshaun Watson, and the Browns are going to run a little bit of a pin pull action. They want to get him in space. Unfortunately, they do a really good job of the Bengals do of getting him to have to turn this back, but he has the ability, the elusiveness to turn this all the way back, all the way around the defense, get back in front. Deshaun Watson has to become a blocker right there. He does a good job of getting 23 Daxton Hill out of the way, and then you have all of this going through for Elijah Moore. So I do think he's going to be a player this week against a rival in the Baltimore Ravens where he can have a good game again. He hasn't scored a touchdown this year, but I think it's coming this week against the Ravens. So I am a start player, a really high guy on Elijah Moore this week. The next player we're going to get into is Kendrick Bourne, who's wide receiver 49 on Fantasy Football Guy on the Football Guys weekly rankings. I know that a lot of people are going to be turned off by this, but he's playing roughly 66% of the snaps this year, and he's earned a 20% target share, the most in the Patriots offense, by the way. He's 13th in the NFL in average depth of target at 14.6 yards. Nearly 75% of his snaps are coming from the outside. All right, and the Dallas Cowboys run around 41% man coverage, and he is their best man beater this season so far. Trayvon Diggs is lost for the season. Marquise Brown last week had 17 PPR points, and I think that this is an area where you can get more Kendrick Bourne into your lineup, and he can actually produce. He's 14th in red zone targets this year. He has 6 of them. He's developing a chemistry with Mac Jones, and New England is, funny enough, first in offensive plays per game this year with 70. So let's just take a look here and see what we got with Kendrick Bourne. Like I said, he's been on the outside a lot, but what he actually is, he's lined up on the line of scrimmage a lot for the New England Patriots right here. And I like I said, I'm a big fan of the player. I always have been, but I've never really seen an offense try to get him involved. And I mean, Bill O'Brien has done a fantastic job of really making him a focal point. And this is a nice concept here. It's a mesh design on offense. What they're trying to do is stretch the defense horizontally. So you have an under route here. You have the tight end here who's going to run a bit over this and go out here. What this is designed to do is take these linebackers and move them side to side so that Kendrick Bourne can come in here and sit down and get that first down and more, get him into some space. And then, you see the middle linebacker here, not really fool on that. He doesn't take it. He doesn't take the bait for it, but a well-located ball over the middle of the field, and Kendrick Bourne takes that and gets a first down plus more, fighting for those yards after the catch. He's a good player as well with speed, acceleration, and he can do some damage in the yak department if he gets into space. And here we have Kendrick Bourne as more of a man coverage beating option here. Right here up against Sauce Gardner in close man coverage. We see Kendrick Bourne detailing his routes. He's going to stem this to the outside and force Sauce Gardner to think he's going to go upfield. And that's when you see the hip sink and the dive to come underneath. I love what he does here, because what you want to do as a wide receiver is sell the verticality to that cornerback, and then you can get into the break off and come downhill here and get into space, fighting come back to that ball and be an outlet once again to your quarterback. And that's what this is really about for some of these receivers, is become an outlet, and then you can see the toughness after the catch to continue and get more yards. I love that in a player myself. Here we have Kendrick Bourne against the Philadelphia Eagles lined up in this bunch formation on the left-hand side. This is a nice drawn-up play against man coverage as well. You're going to see Kendrick Bourne take this more of a post route, but you see he's going to detail it to the outside. So again, he's stemming this vertically to the outside, turning that cornerback around, and then beating him underneath. And how the Patriots were able to get all of this off is that they're moving a lot of parts in this play itself. So you have this bunch formation out here, which is going to move the tight end to the flat. So you're going to pull some defender there. The apex receiver here is running an over route all over the middle of the field. So again, you have two players dissecting the defense in one side or the other. And then you have Kendrick Bourne here, who's just going to notice that he's got man coverage with this defensive player here coming down into the zone. You have a big space in the middle of the field that he can now attack. He sees that, especially with a safety here shaded to the right-hand side of the field. This is all open now for Kendrick Bourne, who's again going to stem this to the outside, make that corner think he's getting out. When he sees those hips open, he cuts underneath, well-placed ball in the end zone for a touchdown. So I think that this week against the Dallas Cowboys, who got embarrassed by the Arizona Cardinals last week, are going to come out and try to put more points on the board. It is Bill Belichick's defense, but I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a game where there's a negative game script for the New England Patriots, and their best offensive weapon right now, downfield and making splash plays. Really, there's two of them, but Kendrick Bourne is one of those players, and I believe he's going to have a nice week getting targeted from Mac Jones. So I am a must start for Kendrick Bourne. I can't believe I'm saying that myself. A week removed from saying he's going to poof back into a pumpkin, here we are touting a Kendrick Bourne. It just shows you how much the fantasy landscape can change week to week. The next player we're talking about today, this is an interesting one that a lot of people are going to lose their minds over too. Khalil Herbert. Yeah, Khalil Herbert, that's right, running back for the Chicago Bears. He's running back 35 on the Football Guys weekly ranks this week. He's playing 51% of the snaps and 34% of the rushing market share is going to him. The big thing here is the game script. They have really had trouble establishing themselves in the offense, and you can tell that by the amount of plays they have. They've only run 52 plays per game on the season. That's third worst in the NFL. He's also earning 12% of the target market share for the team. He's got 10 targets on the year. Those are nice for him, but I think at the end of the day here against the Denver Broncos, who now have allowed the most points to running backs in the NFL for fantasy-wise, I mean, that was really aided by last week against the Dolphins. They were 11th before then, so they were still giving up points to running backs. This is an area where they can maybe scheme him to get more touches, and he has been an efficient runner this year with Roschon Johnson as well. So that's a good 1-2 punch for them. And let me just show you some of the strengths that he has as a runner. I know that, Khalil Herbert's not the pass catching back everyone wants him to be, but he does handle the ball well. They can get him in space, and what he does extremely well is get uphill quickly. He gets downhill, he notices the holes that are coming around, and he's able to attack defenses. Right here, they're going to do a little pin pull action, and they're going to take the center and the tackle, they're going to pull him around. And what this typically does is you're going to see some triggering downhill to the right hand side of the offense from the defense. And when that happens, that's when Khalil Herbert sees that little bit of a backside. When we call backside is right here. Typically it's backside because they want the play to get all the way out here to this area of the field. But Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs is here. You have a little bit of overflow from the Chiefs defense here. And then you have 58. He's going to see that this little block is coming to number 50 on the Chiefs defense, and he can get right in here and get upfield for a nice gain. And that's what he does. He does a nice job here holding to that offensive line, pressing the gap a little bit to the outside, then getting upfield. So he is a very good north to south runner. It's what makes him efficient. And they're going to do a little bit of split zone action on this play here against the Chiefs. For those of you that don't know, split zone is where you have an offensive line is going to move one way, so they're going to move to their left. This sniffer tight end here, one that's technically detached from the offensive line, is going to come across to an unblocked defensive end, in this case a linebacker, whoever ends up being off that line there. So this split zone action gets Khalil Herbert moving to the left, the defense also moving to the left, and he wisely cuts back across that formation for the Chicago Bears and gets about 10 yards on this play. So he's a good back, especially when he can get upfield, use his speed and acceleration, and this is what they need to do more of with Khalil Herbert. Get him the ball in space. He's a good mover. If they can continue to use him in ways like this, scheming him up in space. I don't have a lot of faith in the Chicago Bears coaching staff to do this. But again, in this game against the Denver Broncos, where both teams are heading in the wrong direction and they have to get something right. And this is a game where they can absolutely do that against a really bad Denver Broncos defense. At least it has been to this point in the season. I believe Khalil Herbert has a fun week against that defense. And when it just goes to show you that different players can have an impact week to week. And I do believe that Khalil Herbert is a start for me this week, and he's going to help your fantasy teams out quite a bit. And the last guy we're going to talk about, now back to my tight ends. I've been doing pretty good with my tight end sleepers. Kyle Granson, and then back to Pat Freiermuth last week. This week, we're going to Gerald Everett of the Los Angeles Chargers. He's tight end 17 on the Football Guys weekly ranks. Now, he was tight end 20 when I started doing this, so we've seen a little bit of shift in the market for him. He was tight end 16 in the weeks Mike Williams missed with injury last year, and that's also with the game missing of injury of himself. So he was going to be higher in those weeks if he had played one more game. He's playing about 50% of the snaps on the year. He saw his highest target market share this season in week 3 at 13%. I believe he's going to have more targets with Mike Williams out. He's a good yak player, yards after the catch, and he's averaging 31% of his snaps in the slot. He's also running a route on 46% of his snaps, 50% in week 3. So we're going to see that continue to move up with the absence of Mike Williams. He's 6th in yards after the catch among tight ends with 5 or more targets. He's got 6.5 yards per catch, and 11th in yards per route run, 1.56 is pretty good for tight ends. And the Chargers average 64.7, so about 65 plays a game, which tied for most in the NFL, or ninth most in the NFL, excuse me. And the Vegas Raiders give up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. We're going back to the well with the tight ends against the Chargers, against the Raiders. And it makes sense. I do believe that this is the kind of player we're looking for this week, especially for streaming tight end options. There's going to be injuries, and when we're trying to piggyback guys that can end up in the top 5 of tight end scoring, he's one of the guys I believe that can do that this week against the Raiders. And this is a nice job here of just feeling the defense. And what I mean by that is he's just running an over route, a little bit of an underneath route here, and he's not going to look at the quarterback until he clears this underneath linebacker. So watch how he goes across the field here. He's going to look back at Justin Herbert right now. So he's going to clear this linebacker here. He knows that this is the area where the ball can come into. It's this window. He's not aiming for this window because you have a linebacker here and another drop in here. So he's looking right here. That football comes on a line from Justin Herbert, takes that hit, completes this for a first down. Nice catch, move the chains. I like to see that with my tight ends. But again, we talked about him being moved around all over the formation. He was in the bunch set on the previous play. Now he's the standalone receiver in a 3-by-1 set. He's going to get a little bit of underneath coverage here. The Vikings are running a little bit of a blitz, a little bit of game right here where they're going to take two defenders out of the middle of the field. And this is where Everett's going to be able to get into his bag. It's not the best route run from him, a little outside-inside pivot, but you see all the space he works with. He's able to get into that and then really take off and get some yards after the catch. Getting those yards after the catch is really important for tight ends. And Everett, while he hasn't been a huge garner of targets in his career, he is a tight end who's athletic, can get out on the move, and the Chargers can continue to use in that move tight end position. So I'm a big fan of what he can do in this offense. And I do think even though they're moving a lot of tight ends around, he's a tight end one that we can see lined up in the slot, lined up on the outside, or lined up in line right here against the Titans from last week, and from 2 weeks ago, and attack the seams. This is a pretty basic cover 4 defense you're going to see from the Titans. It's pretty static. No one's really moving, but what you do notice is that there's a huge area of the field right here that's going to be able to be targeted by Gerald Everett, and he does a great job, one, of the play action, drawing up this linebacker right here from Justin Herbert and the offense, and then attacking down that seam where he's wide open. He's going to make a guy miss and then tough out some more yards after the catch here. So look at him, just keep on chugging, big man. I love when I can see a tight end do that, especially to some of these players on the Titans defense who are really good at rallying to the football and attacking it. So he's definitely a play for me that I think is going to be able to bring you some value at tight end this week, especially with injuries. Mark Andrews hasn't been producing a ton. That Ravens offense hasn't done enough for you. So he's an option for a top 5 finish this week, especially against the Raiders, who just allowed Pat Freiermuth to score a touchdown on them last week. It's more than live here against an offense where I think this game could be high scoring. So Gerald Everett is absolutely a must start for me this week in week 4. So I'm a big fan of doing these. I love getting into the stats and get into the tape and show you guys what this is all about. We're doing pretty good. We're going for 4 for 4 this week, so I hope that I can bring that for you guys. If not, we'll definitely be back next week with more stats, more analysis, and a better way ahead. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.